Admiral Taewoo stepped onto the bridge of his flagship, Stellar Dominion, his polished boots clicking against the crystalline floor. The massive command center buzzed with activity as dozens of Zephyrian officers monitored holographic displays, showing star charts, fleet positions, and conquest progress across the galaxy. At the center of it all, a three-dimensional projection of a small blue-green planet rotated slowly, casting an eerie glow across the Admiral's scarred face. Commander Jiho approached with a data tablet clutched in his four-armed grip, his reptilian features twisted into what passed for amusement among his species. Behind him, Lieutenant Haijin carried additional surveillance recordings, her silver scales shimmering under the bridge's ambient lighting. "Admiral, the reconnaissance drones have completed their survey of the third planet in this system," Jiho announced, gesturing toward the holographic Earth. "The inhabitants call themselves humans, bipedal, carbon-based, roughly 2 meters in height. Their technology level is primitive at best." Taewoo circled the projection, studying the swirling white clouds and vast blue oceans. "Population? Approximately 8 billion concentrated on the land masses. They've established small colonies on their moon and a few orbital stations, but nothing significant." Jiho tapped his tablet, bringing up images of human cities. "Their largest settlements are densely packed but poorly defended. No planetary shields, no orbital defense platforms." The Admiral paused as he watched footage of human spacecraft, angular metallic vessels that looked more like industrial equipment than military hardware. "These are their warships?" Lieutenant Haijin stepped forward, barely suppressing a chuckle. "Yes, sir. They call them destroyers and cruisers, but they're equipped with projectile weapons that fire metal slugs. Some have basic laser systems, but nothing that could penetrate our hull plating." "Kinetic weapons?" Taewoo raised an eyebrow ridge. "They're still throwing rocks at each other." The bridge crew erupted in laughter. Captain So Young, manning the tactical station, wiped tears from her large black eyes. "Sir, their most advanced weapon fires explosive shells. Our personal shields could deflect their heaviest bombardment." Jiho activated another hologram showing human military formations. They organized their fleets in rigid geometric patterns, completely predictable. No adaptive tactics, no quantum maneuvering. They fly in straight lines and shoot in straight lines. "How refreshingly simple," Taewoo mused, turning toward his command throne. The chair rose from the floor as he approached, adjusting to his height and providing tactical displays at arm's reach. "What's their fastest vessel?" "Their most advanced interceptor achieves roughly 12% light speed," Haijin reported. "Our scout ships could outrun their entire fleet while firing backwards." More laughter rippled across the bridge. Senior Weapons Officer Minho looked up from his console with obvious excitement. "Admiral, with respect, couldn't we handle this? With a single battle group? 500 ships seems excessive for such primitive opposition." Taewoo activated his personal display, reviewing the standard conquest protocols that had served the Zephyrian Empire for over 3,000 years. Each step was precisely calculated based on the target species' technological development, military capability, and social structure. Humans ranked barely above pre-spaceflight civilizations. "Standard fleet formation. 7 it is," he declared, his voice carrying across the bridge. 500 vessels should provide an overwhelming show of force. These humans will surrender the moment they see our dreadnoughts emerge from hyperspace. Commander Jiho began issuing orders to the fleet communications array. Across the star system, massive Zephyrian warships powered up their hyperdrive systems. The smallest escort vessels stretched over a kilometer in length, while the flagship, dreadnoughts measured nearly 10 kilometers from bow to stern. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a continent. "Estimated time to surrender?" asked Captain So Young as she coordinated with the other ship commanders. 2 solar cycles for initial shock, 1 additional cycle for their leadership to accept reality, Taewoo replied confidently. "I've seen this pattern hundreds of times. The primitive species always react the same way. Fear, confusion, then submission." The War Council members began gathering around the central display, their various alien features animated with anticipation. General In Wu, his cybernetic implants glowing softly, pulled up recordings of humanity's limited space battles. Look at this footage from their recent conflict near Jupiter. They rammed their damaged ships into asteroids rather than retreat. Completely wasteful. Emotional species, observed science advisor Da Yun, her tentacles manipulating multiple data streams simultaneously. They make decisions based on feelings rather than logic, classic sign of evolutionary immaturity. Defense Coordinator Yunji added her analysis while reviewing human communication intercepts. Their military broadcasts show excessive concern for individual casualties. They abort missions to rescue single soldiers. Such inefficiency will make conquest remarkably easy. As the laughter and casual conversation continued, the bridge's auxiliary intelligence officer quietly filed his complete report in the ship's database, buried on page 47, in subsection 12 of behavioral analysis. A single line noted, "Humans demonstrate unpredictable escalation patterns during territorial disputes, often exceeding logical response parameters." Nobody read that far. The fabric of space rippled like disturbed water as 500 Zephyrian warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Their arrival sent gravitational waves cascading through the asteroid belt, causing chunks of rock to tumble in new directions. Admiral Taewoo stood on the bridge of his flagship, Stellar Dominion, watching as his massive fleet arranged itself in perfect formation. The smallest escort ships stretched over a kilometer long, their hulls bristling with energy cannons and plasma torpedoes. Behind them, the heavy cruisers loomed like floating cities, their weapon arrays capable of cracking moons. At the center, the dreadnoughts cast shadows that could eclipse small planets, their mirror black hulls reflecting the distant light of Earth's sun. "Beautiful sight, isn't it?" Commander Jiho remarked as he approached the command throne. "I never tire of seeing lesser species realize their place in the galaxy." Taewoo activated the standard surrender broadcast, a message that had been refined over centuries of conquest. His words would be automatically translated into the local language and transmitted across all communication frequencies. "Attention, inhabitants of the third planet. I am Admiral Taewoo of the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our civilization. Surrender immediately and your species will be granted worker status within the Empire. Resistance will result in planetary sterilization. You have 1 solar cycle to comply." The bridge fell silent as they waited for the inevitable response. Panicked transmissions, desperate pleas for mercy, offers of tribute. It was always the same pattern. Instead, the first thing they heard was a single human voice cutting through the static. "Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Park Min-woo of the Earth Defense Force. You are trespassing in sovereign human space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Lieutenant Hee-jin looked up from her communications console with confusion. "Sir, they're giving us an ultimatum?" Before Taewoo could respond, his tactical officer began shouting warnings. "Energy. Signatures detected. Multiple contacts emerging from the asteroid field." The main display exploded into activity as dozens of human vessels materialized from behind asteroids, planetary rings, and even from within the shadow of Jupiter itself. These weren't the crude metal boxes they'd seen in surveillance footage. These ships moved with predatory grace, their hulls painted matte black to blend with the void of space. "How many are there?" Taewoo demanded. 70. 90. "Sir, they're still coming." They were hiding throughout the entire system. Captain So-young rushed to the weapons console as proximity alarms began wailing. "Admiral, the lead human vessels are accelerating directly toward our formation. They're not even trying to maintain safe distances." Taewoo watched in disbelief as a human destroyer, barely 200 meters long, accelerated to ramming speed directly toward his heavy cruiser, Eternal Glory. The Zephyrian vessel was 20 times larger, its shields capable of deflecting asteroid impacts. "They can't be serious," he muttered. "That ship will be destroyed on contact." The human destroyer struck the cruiser's forward section at nearly 15% light speed. The impact vaporized the smaller vessel instantly, but the kinetic Energy transfer was devastating. The Eternal Glory's forward shields collapsed, its hull plates buckled, and atmosphere vented from 3 decks as emergency bulkheads slammed shut. "Damage report," Taewoo roared over the chaos of alarms and emergency lighting. 17 dead, 43 wounded, reported Medical Officer Sung-ho. "The forward torpedo bays are completely destroyed." Another human ship was already lining up for a second ramming attack. This time it was a heavy cruiser nearly matching a Zephyrian escort in size. Its hull had been reinforced with what looked like industrial mining equipment welded to the front. "All ships, evasive maneuvers." Taewoo commanded, but the Zephyrian formation was too rigid, too predictable. The human vessel smashed into the escort. Pride of Zephyr, punching through its hull like a spear through paper. Defense Coordinator Yoon-ji's voice cracked as she reported from her station. "Sir, they're not targeting our military vessels exclusively. 3 human fighters just rammed our medical frigate Healing Light. There were civilian families aboard. More human ships poured out of hiding spots throughout the system. Some emerged from behind Earth's moon, others from the rings of Saturn. An entire squadron had been hiding in the shadow of Mars, using the planet's magnetic field to mask their energy signatures." "They're everywhere," Lieutenant Minho shouted. "How did they hide so many ships?" "The human vessels moved with tactics no civilized species would employ. They used their own destroyed ships as cover, flying through the debris fields to get closer to Zephyrian targets. Some human craft were little more than cargo haulers with explosives strapped to their hulls, piloted by volunteers who had no intention of returning home." Communications Officer Hyejin intercepted human battle chatter and put it on the bridge speakers. The voices were calm, professional, almost casual as they coordinated their suicide attacks. "Phoenix 7 to all units. I have a clean shot at their command ship. Going in. Copy Phoenix 7. Thunder Squadron will provide cover for your approach." "Understood. Tell my family I died fighting for Earth." Taewoo felt something he'd never experienced in 3 centuries of conquest. Genuine fear. These humans weren't fighting to win in any conventional sense. They were fighting to inflict maximum damage regardless of cost. A human battleship, its hull glowing red from weapons fire, made a final desperate charge toward his flagship. Half its weapons were destroyed. Atmosphere was streaming from multiple hull breaches, but it kept coming. "All forward batteries target that vessel," Taewoo commanded. The combined firepower of 12 Zephyrian cruisers focused on the approaching human ship. Energy beams carved through its armor. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull. But the dying vessel maintained course. It struck the Stellar Dominion's port side, penetrating 6 decks before its reactor finally detonated. The explosion sent shockwaves through the massive dreadnought, throwing crew members to the deck and shorting out primary systems. As emergency crews fought fires and sealed hull breaches throughout the fleet, Taewoo opened a priority channel to Zephyrian. "High Command." His hands trembled as he spoke. "This is Admiral Taewoo requesting immediate reinforcements. The humans are not surrendering. They're not following any recognized rules of warfare. They're using kamikaze tactics against our entire fleet." He paused, watching another human ship explode against his formation shields. Request permission to withdraw and reassess. These humans, they fight like nothing we've encountered. The holographic communication chamber aboard the Stellar Dominion flickered to life as Emperor Veltharian's imposing figure materialized before Admiral Taewoo. The Emperor's forearms gestured angrily, his bioluminescent markings pulsing red with rage. Behind him, the crystal spires of the Imperial Palace on Zephyr Prime gleamed in the artificial light. "Admiral, your reports make no sense." The Emperor's voice boomed across space. "A primitive species cannot inflict such casualties on our advanced fleet. You must be exaggerating their capabilities." Taewoo's scarred face remained grim as he gestured toward the tactical display showing his damaged ships. "Your Majesty, I assure you the reports are accurate. We've lost 47 vessels to their suicide attacks. They show no regard for their own lives. Then we'll show them the consequences of defying the Empire," Veltharian declared, his massive form towering even in hologram. "I'm authorizing Operation Cleansing Fire. 3,000 ships will demonstrate what happens when lesser species refuse our generous offer of integration. The communication ended with an ominous hum, leaving Tae-woo staring at empty air. Within hours, the space around Earth transformed into a nightmare of military might. Zephyrian reinforcement fleets dropped out of hyperspace in waves, their combined mass creating gravitational distortions that sent Earth's satellites tumbling from orbit. Commander Ji-ho approached with updated fleet reports. Admiral, the bombardment. Vessels are in position. Planetary siege cannons are targeting their major population centers. The humans will surrender once they see their cities burning. Tae-woo nodded grimly as he watched the massive siege ships align their weapons. Each vessel carried plasma bombardment systems capable of turning entire continents into molten glass. The plan was simple. Destroy a few major cities to demonstrate superior firepower, then accept the inevitable surrender. Begin bombardment. Of coordinates Alpha through Delta, he commanded. The space around Earth lit up like a deadly fireworks display as hundreds of energy beams lanced down from orbit. New York vanished in a pillar of superheated plasma. London disappeared beneath a wave of molecular fire. Tokyo became a crater of molten metal and stone. The destruction was swift, precise, and absolutely devastating. Captain So-young monitored human communications as the bombardment continued. Sir, we're receiving surrender broadcasts from several human governments. Some are requesting terms for... Her words were cut off as Lieutenant Min-ho began shouting from his station. Admiral, priority alert from Kepler Sector Command. We're under attack. The main display shifted to show tactical reports flooding in from across Zephyrian space. Red warning indicators appeared on star charts spanning dozens of light years, each one representing a human assault on Imperial territory. Impossible, Tae-woo whispered. How are they attacking our colonies? We destroyed their fleet here at Earth. Defense Coordinator Yoon-ji's tentacles worked frantically across multiple control surfaces as she processed the incoming data. Sir, it's not just one fleet. Human vessels are emerging from deep space throughout the sector. They were already in position before we arrived at Earth. The reports painted a picture that defied all military logic. Human ships, many of them, converted civilian vessels were striking at Zephyrian colonies with coordinated precision. But these weren't military targets. They were going after civilian populations, industrial centers, and even medical facilities. They hit the orbital hospital at Rigel 7, reported Communications Officer Hai Jin, her voice shaking. 300,000 patients and medical staff. Gone. More reports flooded in as the scope of human retaliation became clear. At Vega Station, human fighters had somehow penetrated the defensive perimeter and rammed the primary fusion reactor, turning the entire facility into a miniature star. The explosion vaporized everything within 50 kilometers. Science advisor Da Yoon pulled up long-range sensor data, showing the true horror of human tactics. Admiral, they're not using standard warships. These are cargo vessels, mining ships, even passenger liners converted into weapons platforms. They've turned their entire civilian fleet into instruments of war. Tae-woo studied the tactical displays in growing disbelief. A human merchant vessel had somehow disguised itself as a diplomatic courier and penetrated deep into the Centauri system before detonating a massive antimatter bomb near the primary shipyard. The blast had destroyed 16 capital ships under construction and killed over 1 million workers. They're targeting our families, Captain So-young said quietly, her scales pale with shock. The attack on Kepler 442 wasn't military, it was a civilian habitat. 15,000 Zephyrian families lived there. Children, elderly, refugees from other campaigns. Lieutenant Min-ho looked up from his console with fresh horror written across his features. Sir, the humans aren't trying to capture territory or resources. They're sterilizing entire systems. The Proxima colony is gone, completely lifeless. They used some kind of biological weapon that targeted our atmospheric processors. The bridge fell silent except for the steady stream of damage reports and casualty counts. Tae-woo realized with dawning terror that the humans weren't fighting a war in any conventional sense. They were conducting extermination operations. Get me a direct line to the human command structure, he ordered. We need to negotiate a ceasefire before this escalates further. Jin worked at her console before shaking her head. Sir, I can't establish contact. The human military networks have gone completely dark. No diplomatic channels, no surrender frequencies, nothing. A new report appeared on the tactical display, and Tae-woo felt his blood freeze. Human forces had somehow infiltrated the heavily defended Altair system and destroyed the Imperial research station there. But the method of attack was what terrified him. They'd used Zephyrian technology, somehow reverse-engineered and improved beyond original specifications. They're learning from us, he whispered. Every ship they capture, every system they destroy, they're studying our technology and using it against us. Defense Coordinator Yoonji highlighted another disturbing pattern in the data. Admiral, the human attacks are being coordinated across impossible distances. They're communicating using quantum entanglement networks we didn't know they possessed. Their technology level was completely misrepresented in our initial surveys. As if to emphasize the point, long-range sensors detected massive human fleet movements near the outer colonies. These weren't the crude vessels they'd encountered at Earth. These ships incorporated Zephyrian technology into designs that somehow outperformed the originals. Commander Jiho approached with the latest casualty reports, his forearms trembling as he handed over the data tablet. Admiral, we've lost more ships in the past 6 hours than in the last 50 years of conquest campaigns combined. The humans aren't just fighting back, they're winning. Tae-woo stared at the holographic display, showing the spreading chaos across Zephyrian space. Red indicators marked dozens of lost colonies, destroyed fleets, and entire systems gone dark. The humans had turned their bombardment of Earth into a galactic war of extermination. Send an emergency transmission to the Emperor, he commanded, his voice hollow with the weight of impossible defeat. Tell him Operation Cleansing Fire has failed. The humans aren't surrendering, they're coming for us all. The crystal doors to Emperor Veltharion's private chambers exploded inward as General In-woo crashed through, his ceremonial armor cracked and smoking. Behind him, alarms wailed throughout the Imperial Palace as emergency lights bathed the corridors in pulsing red. The general's 6 eyes were wide with panic, his usually perfect military bearing completely shattered. Your Majesty, In-woo gasped, struggling to catch his breath. The human situation. It's beyond anything we've ever encountered. Emperor Veltharion rose from his meditation pool, his massive 12-foot frame casting long shadows across the chamber walls. The bioluminescent patterns on his skin flickered from calm blue to alarmed orange as he absorbed the general's appearance. In 3,000 years of rule, he'd never seen his military commander in such a state. Report, the Emperor commanded, his voice resonating through specialized vocal chambers that could be heard across vast distances. In-woo activated his personal holographic projector with trembling claws. The display showed tactical maps of the outer territories, but instead of the usual blue indicators marking Imperial control, vast swaths of space glowed an ominous red. The humans have taken 17 star systems in the past 48 hours, In-woo reported. But Your Majesty, they're not capturing them, they're sterilizing them completely. The hologram zoomed in on the Proxima Centauri system, showing what had once been the thriving research colony of New Zephyr. Now it displayed as a dead rock, its surface transformed into lifeless glass. When we destroyed their small research outpost at Proxima, In-woo continued, his voice breaking, the humans responded by eliminating every living thing on New Zephyr. Not just military targets, civilian families, children in schools, elderly in care facilities, even the native wildlife. They turned the entire planet into a tomb. Veltharion's skin patterns shifted to deep purple, a color that hadn't appeared in centuries. How many died? 47 million Zephyrians, Your Majesty, gone in less than 6 hours. The chamber doors opened again as Science Advisor Da-yoon rushed in, her tentacles writhing in distress. Her usually pristine laboratory coat was torn and stained with chemical burns. Behind her floated a containment unit filled with what looked like metallic insects. Your Majesty, we've discovered how the humans are accomplishing these impossible victories, she reported, gesturing toward the containment unit. These were found in the wreckage of Admiral Tae-woo's flagship. The Emperor leaned closer to examine the tiny mechanical creatures. Each one was no larger than a grain of sand, But they moved with purposeful intelligence, attempting to eat through the containment walls. Nanites, Da-Yun explained. But not crude human technology. These are our own designs, somehow improved beyond our original specifications. They've reverse-engineered our most advanced molecular engineering and made it more efficient. She activated another display showing microscopic footage of the nanites in action. They specifically target Zephyrian hull materials, dissolving our ship armor in minutes. But that's not the worst part. The display shifted to show biological samples. The captured human prisoners were carrying viral agents designed specifically for our physiology. These viruses attack our immune systems at the genetic level. They've weaponized our own biology against us. General Inwu pulled up intelligence reports from the battlefield. Every engagement follows the same pattern. The humans study our tactics, capture our technology, then deploy improved versions against our next fleet. They're learning from us faster than we can adapt. Emperor Veltharian's aide, Shungho, appeared in the chamber doorway carrying encrypted communication intercepts. His usual calm demeanor was replaced by barely controlled terror. Your Majesty, you need to hear the intercepted human communications, Shungho said, his voice barely above a whisper. They're not treating this as a military conflict. He activated the audio files, and human voices filled the chamber. The Emperor's universal translator converted the alien speech into familiar words, but the meaning was more chilling than any battle cry. Command, this is Extermination Fleet 7. We've completed sterilization of the Rigel system. No Zephyrian biological traces remain. Moving to next target. Copy that, 7. Remember, we're not taking prisoners or leaving survivors. Complete elimination of the infestation is the only acceptable outcome. Understood. These bugs won't threaten Earth again. The audio continued with technical discussions about the most efficient methods for planetary sterilization, casualty maximization, and biological warfare deployment. The humans spoke about genocide with the same casual tone Zephyrians used to discuss weather patterns. Science advisor Da-Yun brought up another horrifying discovery. Your Majesty, we've analyzed human fleet movements using captured navigation data. They're not responding to our attacks, they're anticipating them. Somehow they're predicting our strategies and positioning their forces accordingly. The holographic display showed human vessels emerging from hyperspace at precisely the right coordinates to intercept Zephyrian reinforcements. It was as if they could see into the future. They've hacked our quantum communication networks, Inwu realized with growing horror. They're reading our military dispatches in real time, possibly for weeks before we even transmitted them. Emperor Veltharian processed this information with the weight of absolute authority. His empire had never faced an enemy that could match their technology, predict their strategies, and exceed their capacity for warfare simultaneously. Shungho presented the final piece of intelligence that made even the Emperor's composure crack. Your Majesty, long-range sensors have detected massive human fleet buildups near our core systems. They're not just defending Earth anymore, they're preparing to invade the Imperial heartland. The tactical display showed hundreds of human vessels, many incorporating stolen Zephyrian technology into hybrid designs that surpassed original Imperial specifications. These weren't the primitive ships they'd encountered at Earth. These were weapons of galactic destruction. How many ships? Veltharian asked quietly. Conservative estimates suggest 15,000 vessels, Your Majesty, but our analysis indicates they're still building more at an impossible rate. They've somehow automated their shipyards using our own construction technology. Da-Yun highlighted the most disturbing aspect of human shipbuilding. They're not just copying our designs, they're improving them. These hybrid vessels are faster, more heavily armed, and more efficient than anything in our fleet. General Inwu brought up the final strategic assessment that would haunt the Emperor's nightmares. Your Majesty, based on current casualty rates and resource expenditure, we estimate the humans will reach Zephyr Prime within 60 standard days. Our military analysts believe they intend to sterilize our homeworld completely. The chamber fell, silent except for the distant sounds of emergency preparations throughout the palace. Emperor Veltharian, ruler of 12,000 star systems and conqueror of 100 species, stared at the tactical displays showing his empire under systematic dismantlement by creatures he'd dismissed as primitive animals. They're not fighting a war. he said finally, his voice heavy with the weight of impossible defeat. They're conducting an extermination campaign. The holographic displays continued showing the steady advance of human forces toward the heart of Zephyrian civilization, each red indicator representing another system lost to an enemy that treated the destruction of entire civilizations as routine pest control. The great war room of the Imperial Palace had never seen such devastation reflected in its crystalline walls. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the faces of the Zephyrian High Command as they gathered for what many suspected would be their final council. The air recyclers struggled to process the acrid smoke drifting in from burning sections of the palace complex, damaged by long-range human strikes that had somehow penetrated the planetary defense grid. Admiral Taewoo limped into the chamber, his once magnificent uniform torn and blackened from his last desperate engagement with human forces. His left arm hung in a bio-regeneration sleeve, slowly rebuilding tissue destroyed by human nanite weapons. Behind him, the surviving members of his command staff moved like ghosts, their eyes hollow from witnessing horrors that defied military comprehension. Emperor Veltharion stood at the center of the room, his towering form diminished by the weight of impossible defeat. The bioluminescent patterns on his skin flickered between deep purple and black, colors that hadn't been seen since the ancient plague wars that nearly destroyed his species 3 millennia ago. "Report, Admiral," the Emperor commanded, though his voice lacked its usual resonance of absolute authority. Taewoo activated the central holographic display with trembling claws. The tactical map showed the current state of the war, and the sight drew gasps from even the most hardened military veterans. Nearly a third of Zephyrian space glowed red, indicating systems that had been completely sterilized by human forces. "Your Majesty," Taewoo began, his voice cracking with exhaustion. "Human fleets have penetrated to within 50 light-years of Zephyr Prime. Their advanced scouts are already probing our outer defense perimeter." General In-Woo stepped forward, his ceremonial armor replaced with practical battle gear scorched by plasma fire. "Every system they've touched has been rendered completely lifeless. They're not conquering territory, they're systematically eliminating all traces of Zephyrian civilization." The hologram zoomed in on recent battle sites, showing the aftermath of human liberation operations. Where once thriving colonies had orbited distant stars, now only debris fields remained. The humans had developed weapons that could crack planets like eggs, turning entire worlds into asteroid belts. Defense Minister Hae-won approached the display with data tablets containing intelligence reports that had arrived just hours earlier. Her usually perfect scales were dulled with stress, and her multiple eyes darted nervously as she spoke. "Your Majesty, our deep space monitoring stations report that the humans have deployed something new," she announced. "They call it a Star Killer, a weapon capable of destabilizing stellar cores." The chamber fell silent as she activated footage from the Vega system. The humans had somehow triggered a premature supernova, eliminating not just the Zephyrian colonies but sterilizing every planet within 20 light-years. The explosion had been so precisely calculated that it created an expanding wall of radiation that would prevent any form of life from existing in that region for millions of years. Science advisor Da-eun added her analysis with visible terror. "They've weaponized stellar engineering on a scale we never imagined possible. Our estimates suggest they're preparing to target Zephyr Prime's sun directly." Commander Ji-ho, his forearms working frantically over portable command interfaces, brought up fleet disposition reports. "Your Majesty, we've lost 87% of our total naval strength. The survivors are scattered across dozens of systems, unable to form effective resistance." Captain So-young, her silver scales now bearing permanent scars from nanite exposure, presented casualty figures that made even the Emperor flinch. "Population losses exceed 400 billion Zephyrians across all affected systems. But Your Majesty, the humans aren't taking prisoners or leaving survivors. They're conducting complete species elimination." The tactical display shifted to show human fleet movements, and the pattern was clear. They weren't advancing randomly. They were methodically working their way toward every major Zephyrian population center with the precision of extermination. Specialists Communications. Officer Hee-jin activated intercepted human transmissions. and the alien voices filled the chamber with casual discussions of genocide that chilled even hardened military officers. Sector 7 sterilization complete. Proceeding to target designation Zulu Prime for final cleaning operations. Copy that. Remember, no biological traces allowed to remain. Complete molecular breakdown of all organic material. Understood. These bugs picked the wrong species to mess with. Lieutenant Minho presented the most terrifying intelligence of all: orbital surveillance of human industrial capacity. Your Majesty, they're constructing new warships at a rate that exceeds our ability to destroy them. Every day of continued fighting only makes them stronger. Emperor Veltharion processed the impossible reality facing his empire. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever forced the Zephyrians to consider retreat. Yet here stood his most trusted advisors, all recommending the unthinkable. "What are you asking of me?" he said quietly. Admiral Tae Woo straightened, despite his injuries. "Your Majesty, we must implement the withdrawal protocol, complete evacuation of all territory within 500 light-years of human space." The suggestion was so unprecedented that several council members gasped audibly. The withdrawal protocol existed only in theoretical military doctrine, a last resort for facing an enemy so dangerous that proximity itself posed an existential threat. General Inwoo supported the motion with grim determination. "Your Majesty, continuing this war will result in the complete extinction of our species. The humans have made it clear they consider us vermin to be eliminated, not conquered." Defense Coordinator Yoonji added her analysis while manipulating holographic fleet movements. "Our remaining forces can conduct a fighting withdrawal, buying time for civilian evacuation from the threatened systems. But we must begin immediately, Emperor." Veltharion looked around the chamber at faces that reflected 3 centuries of successful conquest campaigns. These were the beings who had brought countless species under imperial rule, who had never known defeat in battle. Now they stood before him recommending complete retreat from creatures they'd initially dismissed as primitive animals. "The withdrawal protocol has never been implemented," he said slowly. "It would mean abandoning over 2,000 star systems. The alternative is the extinction of our civilization," Tae-Woo replied simply. The Emperor closed his massive eyes and felt the weight of impossible defeat settle on his shoulders. When he opened them again, his bioluminescent patterns had shifted to the deep blue of absolute resolve. "Issue the withdrawal protocol," he commanded, his voice carrying across the chamber with final authority. "All Zephyrian forces will evacuate human space immediately. Establish a 500 light-year exclusion zone around all territories claimed by the human species." He paused, processing the magnitude of what he was ordering. "Mark humanity as a quarantine species. Any vessel approaching human space without imperial authorization will be destroyed immediately. This is not a military retreat. This is a containment protocol for a threat beyond our ability to neutralize." As his commanders began implementing the unprecedented withdrawal, Emperor Veltharion made his way to his private chambers to record what would become the most important entry in imperial history. "Personal log, Emperor Veltharion. Final entry regarding the human conflict," he spoke into the recording device. "We believed we were encountering another primitive species suitable for conquest. Instead, we awakened something that treats the complete destruction of civilizations as routine procedure. The humans do not wage war. They conduct extermination campaigns with efficiency that surpasses our understanding." He paused, watching through his window as the last Zephyrian ships fled toward the edge of the galaxy. Let this serve as an eternal warning to future generations. Never underestimate the species that makes genocide itself a weapon of warfare. Earth's children have shown us that some forms of life are too dangerous to approach. The quarantine must hold forever. In the depths of space, human vessels watched silently as the once mighty Zephyrian Empire retreated into the darkness, carrying with them the knowledge that humanity would never again be underestimated by anyone in the galaxy. The end.